Well, welcome to both of you. Bret Weinstein, are you pleased or disappointed with what RFK has done so far?
I would say I am pleased and disappointed, but not with Secretary Kennedy. I understand that he is facing a labyrinth that those of us on the outside do not understand. And I know him personally. I know he's moving as fast as he feels that he can in the direction that he feels he must take us. It is frustrating on the outside to watch how slowly this is moving, but
he's getting at the point that there's some big, powerful entities that would not want to see America healthy. And I don't mean that from like an evil standpoint, even though it kind of is evil. It's more like a financial standpoint. They want to keep that money flowing in. They want to keep food stamps, getting people on these sugary diets, and then bad health results that lead into, people on prescription medications for the entirety of their life. It's almost like they're all working together. Like, am I crazy? Am I crazy? But they're not happy about these changes. They're not happy, and some of the citizens ain't happy either. I say good riddance, man. We gotta clean up these diets.
he's clearly making moves in the right direction.
What's interesting to me is he's clarified a few things that have grown in mythology about him. He said he's not against all vaccines, which I think was a thing that began to gather momentum when his name was being mentioned for this job. So he's not an anti-vaccine guy, but
that's just what the left does anytime they got to throw some ad hominem attacks out there. They want people to pick up on buzzwords. Anti-vax, anti-vax, anti-vax. RFK, oh, he's anti-vax. Yeah, don't listen to him. He's anti-vax. Buzzwords. That's all they want to stick with you. It's like they know they got your attention for like 30 seconds. If you just remember anti-vax and RFK, their job is done.
He is very skeptical about certain vaccines, notably the mRNA vaccines used to combat COVID. Now, I have to say that independently, I've had a very, very top experienced oncologist in the UK, in London, one of the best in the country, who's expressed exactly the same concerns to me for a long period of time about the mRNA vaccine. So they weren't all mRNA, but the ones that were, he's been very concerned about that. What do you feel about that particular issue?
Unfortunately, the mRNA platform, though it is brilliant in its conception, is fatally flawed. And although there are arguably applications where it might be useful, something like the treatment of a deadly cancer, it is not appropriate to vaccinate against a relatively mundane disease like COVID. The reason that it isn't is that the platform itself carries hazards at its core that at the moment we have no technological fix for. So the myocarditis and pericarditis that showed up as a result of COVID vaccinations are inherent to the platform, not to the messenger RNA that was delivered inside these shots. It would, in my opinion, be almost certain to show up irrespective of what foreign protein was encoded by the vaccine in question. And it would be no service to the public if we were to allow vaccines that have this flaw to be deployed only to discover years later that people had been injured and died because of them.
In simple layman's terms,
I was thinking the same thing. I was like listening, and I was picking up what he's putting down. Like the delivery mechanism is the issue, not necessarily the protein that was the result of. But I'm sitting there like, what? Piers is like, all right, I got to clean this up for my dumb audience. This guy.
Is the issue with mRNA that in an effort to provide immunity against COVID-19, it damages and reduces your general immunity?
I didn't want to go there, but I get sick a lot more often than I used to. It's not even close.
In many people.
No, I would say it's actually much worse than that. That's true, but
maybe we shouldn't even be watching this one. We're going to be leaving this video like, what do we do now?
problem is that the design of this platform is to induce your own cells to make a foreign protein, which gets displayed on the surface of those cells. That's as intended. But because there's no targeting mechanism to lead it to happen only in certain tissues, it can happen haphazardly around the body, including in places like your heart. And what that triggers is your own immune system to see those foreign proteins and conclude the only thing they can, which is that those cells have been virally infected. And the right response, the natural response of the body, is to take virally infected cells and destroy them. So the idea that we get myocarditis from the COVID shots is really standing in for a much starker reality, which is that inflammation, myocarditis, is the symptom of damage to the heart done by our own immune systems in response to the cells in the heart producing a foreign protein and triggering our immune system to attack them.
You guys got all that?
Okay, Bret Jr, thank you for your patience on this. What is your response? First of all, the same question to you. Do you think that RFK Jr. is so far doing a good job, or are you concerned about the job he's doing?
I have to agree with my debate partner here, is that I'm both pleased and somewhat disappointed. I think he's done a spectacular job in highlighting some of the underlying fundamental health issues of Americans and many people in higher income countries, and that is poor nutrition, poor physical fitness. I think everybody can understand that the obesity crisis and poor nutrition not only is important for diabetes and overweight, but it's important for things like even dementia and neurodegeneration. So he's done a great job with that. I think he's been excellent on nobody wants petroleum food dyes. I mean, we need to really tie that up. So I think these are very positive. I also think his focus on assuring that there are no conflicts of interest at major positions has been very good. And he's
that should have been done a long time ago. I'm no medical professional, but it does seem like these medical professionals get, I don't know, kickbacks for pushing certain treatments, usually in prescription form.
He's uniquely charismatic and can bring this message to the American people. I am disappointed, however, in his overall tenor and approach to vaccination and his lack of I would say enthusiastic support early on for things like measles vaccination when there's an outbreak. And I do not agree with his position recently to cancel the mRNA contracts for research. I think we do have a disagreement here. I think we now have 1 billion people worth of evidence that shows that the mRNA vaccine for COVID, a pre-immune population, I'm not talking about a 20-year-old, young man now who's had COVID twice, because I think we can all agree that boosting those kind of individuals is higher risk than it is benefit. But in a pre-immune population or people who are elderly or debilitated, that the COVID mRNA vaccine was highly effective in preventing hospitalizations and deaths. We know it does not prevent acquisition of the illness. I do not think it's a...
That's not what was told to us during the time they were trying to push it. We were told the opposite.
Flawed platform. We do see myocarditis independent of the platform. The AstraZeneca vaccine, the adenovirus-based vaccine, had similar myocarditis, and I believe, and I think the evidence would point to the fact that there is no such thing as a free lunch with a vaccine. And when you're going to immunize with a spike protein or components of COVID, that this is not a platform-specific side effect, but something you get across platforms as you can get it with the native disease. I do agree that mRNA is not the total solution. It has certain characteristics, and the characteristic that I'm most interested in the fact that it is a rapid response platform. The reason why it was the first out of the chute for COVID is because a candidate vaccine can be developed in a short period of time, in a matter of weeks, and the manufacturing is quite reliable. In other words, in contrast to typical flu vaccines that require hundreds of millions of fertilized chicken eggs that you have to inoculate with the actual virus and then purify the virus out of that. mRNA is much more standard in its chemical manufacturing. So it is a rapid response platform. So if we have an unknown new pandemic, or if we have a highly mutated avian influenza strain, or God forbid, we had a bioweapons attack with a strange chimeric kind of virus, the mRNA platform is really right now our best fast response platform, and we need to keep that in our back pocket. I'm not an mRNA for everything, but that is its unique characteristic and why we need to support it.
I met one of the people behind the AstraZeneca.
Apologize for any of the skipping around. Piers has more commercials than anybody on YouTube.
Vaccine, one of the Oxford guys, and he said to me that we really dodged a bullet. He said, because if COVID had had the death rate, particularly with young people, or something like the Black Death, then it would have been an exponentially much more serious thing. And that maybe the lessons we learned from the COVID pandemic will be extremely useful in dealing with the next thing that comes. And his prediction was that and I'll come to you here, Bret Weinstein, it's highly likely that we're going to have to deal with another pandemic of some sort, and it could be a lot more serious next time.
They would like that, wouldn't they? You got to keep the fear up. Got to keep them scared. Keep them guessing. What's next? What's going to get me now? Is it the climate? Is it something that was developed in a lab in order to make viruses stronger? I don't know. Is it going to be a volcano? Is it an asteroid? Be scared, everybody. Be scared.
But the lessons we learned with this actually could be very beneficial. Would you agree with that?
No. I think the chances that we will deal with another pandemic are actually, unfortunately, tightly correlated with our cryptic bioweapons research. Scott.
Bing, bing, bing. I mean, when we're, doing this bio research so close to populations and we're making these things stronger and stronger and more resilient, that seems more dangerous than letting nature take its course to me. Unless, of course, you're trying to use it as a weapon, but that'd be like bio warfare or something.
In the US as dual use research. Were we to put dual use research to bed, the chances of a serious pandemic that requires an intervention like a rapidly deployed mRNA vaccine is actually surprisingly low. And the stories that we use to justify such a response do not turn out to endure scrutiny. So, for example, the 1918 flu pandemic would not happen again today for two different reasons. One, many of the people who died were actually victims of a bacterial pneumonia that we can now treat with antibiotics. And two, aspirin was at the time a new wonder drug, and the dosages that were given to people who contracted the flu are doses that are now understood to be fatal. So if we rerun the tape of history and we say, how often do diseases leap from nature that require a radical intervention? The answer is it's been a very long time since it's happened, and the likelihood of it happening again in an era where we are circulating globally and therefore we all have natural immunity to the diseases that we tend to encounter at some level or another, the chances that we encounter something that requires us to, put the world on pause and deploy a vaccine at lightning pace are low. I would also point out that, yes, in one sense, the mRNA platform solves a question, a pharmacological question, in that it can be deployed very rapidly. On the other hand, it carries a defect in its heart even beyond the tendency to trigger the immune system to attack your own tissues, and that is that the very nature of the platform requires the presentation of a very narrow antigenic set, which means that the viruses that we are confronting have a relatively easy problem to solve evolutionarily. Unlike natural immunity, where you become immune to an entire virus, your immunity to a single antigen is something that evolution can easily sidestep. So what we tend to do with a narrowly targeted platform like mRNA is drive the evolution of the virus, which may even prolong a pandemic.
I'll tell you what, I really appreciate when Bret Weinstein is on because he always is cool and collective and gives very thoughtful responses and answers to the questions. And he tends to stay in his lane that he understands. That was very long winded, but it was very clear. And he painted the picture from like A to Z as to how these things work in a way that I've not heard before. And I absolutely walked away with this having learned something about these mRNA vaccines that I hadn't known before. If you made it this far, appreciate you. Like and subscribe. See you next time.